Believe me when I tell you that one of the most impressive fields of Mudbog Championship racers has assembled here this weekend in the Steel City. This is the Budweiser 1988 GC jet that is powered by a nitrous oxide injected, alcohol burning, 509 cubic inch aluminum Rodex Chevrolet. And interestingly enough, it uses a 2-speed automatic transmission, the power glide transmission, that GM produced back in the mid-1960s behind one of the most powerful engines in this sport. This is an honest-to-goodness 1,500 horsepower engine. Well, Melvin Brown, like I said, is not that familiar with this particular vehicle. Rod Haverty, the normal driver, had other commitments. And indeed, during preliminary action, Melvin Brown did very well.
And giving him advice out there, that's his father.
Yep, it's his dad, who is the crew chief on the machine. You can see him shake hands with him on almost every run.
Watch him now.
Well, let's hope that's good luck for him.
See if he can do it.
2,150-pound Jeep running car in the mud. One of the strongest in U.S. Honda Association competition. And Melvin Brown and Rod Haverty's Budweiser-sponsored Jeep Flopper should do extremely well on this very, very sticky pit tonight. Tremendous launch and knocked down the pole, and that will unfortunately disqualify Melvin Brown, going out of bounds at the finish line. A tough, tough break.
What a shame, because he had such a good run there.
He saw the machine getting sideways near the finish line and got out of the throttle before he ever crossed the finish line, but as soon as he got out of the throttle, the rear end came around to the left, and that's what hit the pole. Let's watch the replay. We can see exactly maybe what caused the car to get that sideways. Seeing the initial launch, the front wheels literally off the ground, and a rough ride for Melvin Brown. That's something you don't see too often, as a machine taking that rough a ride through the pit. You can see all 4 wheels were airborne there. He grabs the steering wheel, yanks it to the right, trying to steer the car away from the berm, but then the rear end gets airborne. That was the problem.
What a
shame. It
shame.
swings around and hits the pole, and that put him out. This is the brand new Shake Mead 1932 Ford 5-window coupe, being driven by Tom Mintz out of Paxton, Illinois, a supercharged Chevrolet Viclock. This thing has been incredible in preliminary action, Shelley.
Well, you know, he's only 21 years old, and his sponsor, Sam Beck, has a lot of confidence in him.
That's for sure. They put together one of the strongest machines they could imagine. Like I said, a supercharged 466 cubic inch Chevy Viclock on alcohol, 2-speed power glide transmission. He will shift it at about the 70-foot marker on this 80-foot track. 1,500 horsepower of Chevrolet. Absolutely incredible! Upside down and into the safety net. Absolutely incredible ride for Tom Mintz. You can see Jim Harris, the event director, right there, as well as the paramedics and the safety crew. Mintz has motioned to him that he is okay. He says just roll this thing back over.
He had his thumb up and out of the car.
He's absolutely incredible run.
He sure gave the crowd a scare, but the minute he got up, he got quite an ovation.
Listen to this. On the run, completely sideways at the finish line, airborne and on his head. 2.20 seconds.
And he's up and walking. Look at him.
Absolutely unbelievable. That's only 0.17 of a second slower than Tom Martin's quickest run ever. Look at that young man. Look at that young man. 21 years old on a 2.20-second run. Absolutely incredible. And here's the slow motion replay. The machine at half track just blasting across the mud. Look at the tires just skimming the surface exactly the way it should be done. Now it starts to bounce around and hook to the left. You can see him working the steering wheel in the cockpit, trying to keep it straight. He stays full throttle through the shutdown area. The kill switch cuts the motor, but look at this thing. The rear end literally 7 feet in the air, and here's the landing that put him on his head.
I guess so.
Man, what a ride for this rookie.
This is something he'll have to call home and tell him about.
I'll tell you though, is that a classic example of the stringent safety requirements these machines have to have, or what? I'll tell you, the U.S. Auto Association safety regulations are what allowed Tom Mintz to walk away from that crash.
Well, I'll tell you, Jim Harris down there on the floor, our technical director, he supervises all the safety activities here, and that little extra time sure pays off.
There's no question about it. We will be back with more championship action from the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania Civic Arena. Believe me, it will get wilder here at the U.S. Auburn Association Monster Truck and Mud Bog Championships. We'll be back in a moment. Arena with more championship mud bog action that has already been one of the wildest events we have seen in many, many moons. The number to beat, the incredible run by the Shake Me 1932 Ford, 2.20 seconds in this 80-foot pit.
Up next is Nitro Express, driven by Clay Langley. You know, Clay has a special message that he asked me to convey to his wife, Donna, who's recuperating from back surgery. He said to get well soon, and he's dedicating this run to you.
Smoke out of the motor. I don't know if that was just steam or smoke, but we can hear the RPM level drop substantially just off the starting line. And I don't even think Clay bothered to use the nitrous oxide injection on that run. It didn't look like that was exactly what he had in mind, Shelley.
I don't think so, but I still think Donna would be proud.
You can bet when he gets home, Donna will have something to say about it. She's a heck of a lady. I'll tell you, even with the problems, 2.80 seconds is right now good enough for the number 2 spot, and that's with problems on this brand new car, Shelley.
Well, he was sure able to hold on to it.
It was a rough ride. Like I said, it was not nearly as good as that 1932 Austin Bantam Roadster normally runs. But Clay Langley, like I said, is literally the old man of mud racing. If anybody can sort out this new chassis and make it competitive even without a supercharger, this guy will be able to do it, and he'll do it soon. This is the Executioner Jeep that was driven by John Angel back in 1985 to the national championship in the U.S. Auburn Association circuit. As a matter of fact, to tell you how much these machines have evolved in the last 4 years, this truck won the national championship, this Jeep, with a real live 304 cubic inch AMC motor back then. Now it's got a 514 cubic inch alcohol burning injected Ford wedge motor. No longer is a single 4-barrel AMC engine competitive enough to win the national championship, I'm afraid. Preston Ward from Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania is also a hometown favorite here, Shelley.
There he goes!
Good run!
Well, Preston had to get out of the throttle just before the finish line as the machine was dangerously close to the outer boundary, and that's why you saw him get out of the gas before the machine ever crossed the finish line.
Well, I think he's done his son proud.
Right now we've got our...
I tell you, Matt has been involved in this sport since he was knee-high to anybody, and believe me, when he gets behind the wheel, he'll be amazing. I'll tell you, watching the replay, the launch was spectacular, beautiful, just skimming the surface just like a mud run should be. You can see the left front wheel coming way off the ground there. Shuts it off early, but the elapsed time, even with the early shutoff, 2.75 seconds is good enough for the number 2 spot. This is Chad Miller from Vandalia, Ohio, who has run Ford Model T Roadsters in the past in mud racing. This machine powered by a nitrous oxide injected 509 cubic inch aluminum Rodex Chevrolet. Now
I understand this is the lightest vehicle competition tonight.
That's right, it's only 1,950 pounds. Now the Rodex Chevrolet engine is an all-aluminum replica of a 454 Chevy engine, no cast iron parts whatsoever. Now he uses a Power Glide 2-speed transmission, one of the TCI high-performance models. He will shift this car and then hit the nitrous oxide. You'll see the actual power, or at least what appears to be the extra power, coming out of the exhaust pipes, and you'll hear it in the RPM. A tremendous blast for Chad Miller, the instant T on one of the quickest runs of the night. The question is, was it quick enough to overtake the number 1 spot? The mark to beat, 2.20 seconds, and even Jim Harris, our event director, was thrilled with that effort. The mark to beat, like I said, 2.20 seconds. Let's look at the replay and see what happens as the machine leaves the starting line, wheels up. Miller's left-hand drive 1927 Ford T Roadster sticks with it. Look at the tire growth on this thing. Sticking with it all the way through, and here's the elapsed time. The mark to beat was 2.20 seconds. Chad Miller runs 2.21 seconds. By 1/100th of a second, Chad Miller is stuck in the second spot, but he is thrilled. Mark to beat still 2.20 seconds. This is Todd Shank, the Fulton, Pennsylvania veteran with a Ford power plant in this all fiberglass, funny car style Jeep.
Well, you know, he's got a couple sponsors who are mighty proud to be involved with him. Deal and Dave Speed Shop, brewery products.
Here we go.
And here we go.
I'll tell you, that machine was never more than 3 inches in the mud. That was just about a perfect pass, even though he left the starting line a little bit low on RPM, Shelley. But like you said, he's got a Budweiser sponsorship, Deal and Dave Speed Shop, and even a radio station backs him, don't they?
Well, I'm sure the radio station will be announcing how well he did today?
I think it's an AM station in Pennsylvania. WSBA is one of the backers for this particular machine. I'll tell you, we've had some incredible runs. You can see on the replay the machine getting a little bit sideways down around the 60-foot marker. Todd, excuse me, did a tremendous job of correcting the machine, blasting right by the finish line. The elapsed time, 2.89 seconds. Even though the starting line launch hurt him, he still is now in the 4th spot. This is Butch Groft from Mount Airy, Maryland, with his funny car style Jeepster. 427 cubic inch Chevy Rat motor, one of the L88 Corvette motors, as a matter of fact. Fuel injected, burning alcohol and nitrous oxide. Look at the safety equipment on this guy. The shoulder harness is a 5-point harness system. The neck collar that keeps your head from moving around too violently. And of course, the full coverage helmet. All a part of U.S. Harmon Association safety rules for these incredible machines.
And you know, I noticed the tires up front are smaller than the ones in the back.
Because of the weight transfer on these machines, the front tires very seldom touch the mud. Therefore, most of the traction is delivered through the rear tires, even though they're four-wheel drive vehicles. It's still important to get all 4 wheels on. Good launch, bouncing all over the place. And what a ride for Butch Groft from Mount Airy, Maryland. Tremendous run. You can see the machine really didn't even get that dirty. That's the way a mud run should be. The machine should just skim the surface of the pit, never really digging in. Beautiful pass.
Now, what was that coming out the side of it? Was that steam of some sort?
As we can see on the replay, we'll get a chance to look. Now that's just mud hitting those exhaust headers again. Like I said, it's the same as pouring water on a hot frying pan. It's just steam coming off the exhaust headers, completely airborne off the end of the pit. And the elapsed time, 2.70 seconds. That's good enough for the number 3 spot. 2.70 seconds. And indeed, the mark to beat still 2.20, but this is the man that everybody expects will not only take the number 1 spot, but will indeed reset the current U.S. Harmon Association national elapsed time record. Last night in preliminaries, on a record of 2.10 seconds, this man, Tom Martin, ran 2.07, and he's shooting for under 2 seconds flat here this afternoon. Martin on the starting line with a fuel-injected 540 cubic inch Chevrolet machine known as Mud Patrol. That's the sign on the side of this 1932 Ford 5-window coupe that a lot of drivers hate to see.
Well, I'll tell you, he's probably got one of the most dedicated crews also. His dad, John, and his mom, Norma, are his crew.
That's right.
And along with Greg Stone, they've got themselves one powerful machine.
Like I said, 2.07 seconds in preliminaries. Now looking for a new world record. The nitrous oxide injected, fuel injected, alcohol burning Chevy powered machine that won the Fall Nationals last year also has a chance to break into the number 1 spot in the National Points Championship chase if he can finish in the top 8 here tonight. A lot of pressure on young Tom Martin, the 375-pound 23-year-old from Portage, Indiana.
Well, if anybody can take the pressure, he can.
No question. If he can get this thing off the line in good form, we're going to see an unbelievable pass. RPM's up. Martin looks at the gauges, building up engine temperature. He won't leave the line until he is satisfied everything is perfect. Checks the belts. Takes aim at the finish line. Drops the RPM, clears out the throttle, and now gets ready for what may be the quickest run in U.S. Harmon Association history. Man, he is ready. Oh, an unbelievable ride! Unbelievable ride! The car was literally airborne across the finish line. Look at him! Tom Martin knows it was a great run.
He did it! He did it! A new leader! Well, I'm going to tell you something. You think about this. You know, when these guys...
Looking at the replay, Martin's machine launched beautifully. You can see it relatively rough up the starting line, but Martin never thought about lifting the throttle. The front wheels come up, and now it's a real ride, manhandling the machine across the finish line. The mark to beat for the number 1 spot was 2.20 seconds. The official U.S. Harmon Association record was 2.10 seconds. And race fans, Tom Martin's elapsed time, 2.00 seconds. The quickest run ever for an 80-foot track and the wildest pass of the event.
I'll tell you, was one beautiful ride.
Who is going to win? So
absolutely incredible. Tom Martin takes over the number 1 spot. Now he has a chance to take over the national championship points chase. Here is an incredible piece of equipment that may be able to threaten Tom Martin's Mud Patrol. This is Tim Ritchie from Buchanan, Michigan, with the Learning to Fly Jeep Funny Car, powered not by a Chevy, not by a Ford, but a 512 cubic inch Dodge Wedge engine. One of the only Chrysler-powered machines in professional mud racing. And by the way, it uses carburetors of nitrous oxide, no supercharger, Shelley. Remember, all nitrous oxide does is add extra oxygen to the engine. Just by pushing the button, or in this case, stomping on the throttle, these guys can add about 400 to 600 extra horsepower.
Good run.
And a great run for the Chrysler wedge-powered machine. Now, Tim Ritchie, during last year's competition, did some incredible jobs of driving this Chrysler-powered machine at many of the U.S. Hot Association national events. He picked up a second and a third towards the end of the season, and as a matter of fact, is without a doubt one of the strongest running Chrysler products in the country. And you can see when he left the starting line, the rear end came up in the air, and that caused this bucking Bronco motion all the way down the pit. But still, Tim kept his throttle in it all the way. The elapsed time, 2.42 seconds. One of the quickest passes ever for the Buchanan, Michigan 20-year-old. So 2.42 seconds will give him the 4th spot right now. Tremendous effort. This is Mike Urdahl, the Walkerton, Indiana driver of the 1964 Corvette called Mud Shark. And we had a chance to look at this machine up close. The United States Hot Rod Association Championship Mud Racing Trail has a lot of wild racers, but none strikes fear into the hearts of competitors and even officials as much as the Mud Shark 1964 Chevy Corvette out of the state of Indiana. Mike Urdahl, the man who does the driving of this machine, is well known around the country for some of the wildest rides in this sport. And Mike, this car has got to have more power than any other mud machine before it.
I think it's real even with a lot of the other vehicles. We probably only running about 1,200 horse. Some of the vehicles are running full aluminum funny car top fuel motors, and they're making more power than we are.
This is basically a cast iron 468 cubic inch production Chevy motor, isn't it?
Right. It's all Chevrolet except for the Carrillo steel rods, and it's a truck Chevrolet block even.
But this particular machine has always given some of the wildest performances in the history of this association. This thing is an absolute handful to control.
It's a real short wheelbase compared to a lot of the other vehicles. It was built 4 years ago, and it's sort of a dinosaur in the sport right now.
But even so, it's one of the most popular, there's no question. And without a doubt, any machine that can keep up with this is running good. Besides that, it's got to give you the rides of your life.
It's like a $20, $25 ride at the fair if you could get one.
Urdahl on the starting line, a fuel-injected, methanol-burning, supercharged, big block Chevrolet in a car with an incredibly short wheelbase that is beyond difficult to control. Urdahl has ice water in his veins. Every pass he makes in this thing is one of the scariest rides you'll ever see. The mark to beat, too flat. It would take a new world's record to get the #1 spot back. But the Mud Shark is one of the wildest in the business. Keep your eyes on the incredible topless vet.
Here we go. The Corvette is about ready to
sideways across the finish line, knocking down the finish line pole, and Urdahl takes another incredibly wild ride. The question is, though, the elapsed time. Because every time this car goes down the racetrack, Shelley, it may get completely sideways, but it is always one of the quickest out there.
Now, did he hit the pole after he crossed the finish line?
That's right. It will be a disqualification because he did tear the pole out of the ground. You can see it right there, nailing the pole at the finish line as Mike locked up the brakes. He was disqualified, but the elapsed time was 2.35 seconds sideways at the finish line. That would have been good enough for the #3 spot, but unfortunately, you can see the crew down there having to pound in that finish line stake again. You know, earlier we saw Melvin Brown doing the driving of the Bud car, the Jeep Funny car originally run by Ron Haverty. This is Melvin's own machine, the Blue Max, and a couple of years ago, Shelley, this was one of the very first lightweight mud racers in the Midwest, and it was a killer. This is a fuel-injected, nitrous oxide-injected 510 cubic inch Chevy powered machine. It doesn't weigh that much, about 2,400 pounds. Like I said, 2 or 3 years ago, this was the state-of-the-art in mud racing.
We'll see if he can let it fly state-of-the-art or not.
Well, like I said, remember, after Tom Martin's 2-second flat run, it takes literally a new world record to get the #1 spot back.
Well, we all wish him the best. He's already had a chance at this once. He should know what he's doing by now.
That's true. U.S. Hot Rod Association allows drivers to run more than one vehicle in competition. And Melvin's the only one that's taking advantage of that rule book loophole so far this season. A great run! Melvin Brown's little Blue Max heads into the safety net. That's what it's there for.
Well, it was good enough to get mud on me.
We've been hit a couple of times down here tonight. I'll tell you, these guys with these incredible runs. I'll tell you, the safety net in itself is a unique innovation of the United States Off-Road Association. This organization was the first to use the catch net like you see on an aircraft carrier to slow these machines down. On the replay, you can see the machine literally torquing itself sideways through the pit. Melvin came out of the pit. The kill switch shut down the motor from the starting line. He runs a career best elapsed time, 2.25 seconds for Melvin Brown's Blue Max. I'll tell you, the Chevrolet and that thing was pumping. That's the quickest he's ever gone, right into the safety net. That's good enough for the number 4 spot. In the final standings, the Mud Patrol 1932 Ford 5-window coupe runs 2 seconds flat for the number 1 spot and the quickest run in 80-foot-long pit history, the U.S. Off-Road Association. The number 2 spot, the beautiful Shake Me machine, virtually an identical piece of equipment to Tom Martin's Mud Patrol at 2.20 seconds sideways and upside down. The instant